Got some good feedback on my Oracle idea over the weekend. So I think the big concern that I see folks having is that there might be an undue influence of the character on the Oracle. So if a character has got background, skill, knack, gift, ability, whatever, they're going to really be pressing their finger on the Oracle too much, pressing down on the scales too much. And I think folks are responding to that, reacting to that a bit. Let me maybe assuage your fears, maybe not. First, ultimately, I'm okay with a player character being able to put their finger on the scale a little bit. For me, actually helps deal with a potential problem, which can be that your players rather, come up with character designs that don't actually end up having much usefulness in the game. I'm someone who comes from the school of the world is the world. I'm not going to cater the world to what you do as a player. You as a player can take this world and do with it whatever you want. But just because your character decides to be goblin doesn't mean I'm going to start throwing goblins all over the world. You're welcome to seek them out, but I'm not going to put them there for you. Well, what this can do, really acknowledge, is that you can end up as a player with the best of intentions picking some kind of option that you may love the flavor of the idea of, but ultimately doesn't end up having any really practical benefit or use. For example, you have some backstory, your character, and I know a lot of OSR games go super light to non-existent on backstory stuff, but I think everybody likes to put a little thought, a little color onto their character. So maybe you see the various options laid out before you and you say, hey, you know what? I love if my character speaks Wood Elf because he was raised by the Wood Elves and he knows some of their culture and their language. I think that would be cool. And that's great. Then maybe the game, you just don't run into any Wood Elf. So sure, you've got this little quirk, but you think, man, I could have picked some of the language. And you're right, this is kind of similar to the ranger problem. Oh, I took favorite terrain, swamp. We never go to the swamp. Well, with this kind of oracle, what if I roll up a party of elves on the road? And then that player can go, ooh, you know what? My character speaks Wood Elf. I wonder if they are Wood Elf. I'm going to ask, could these perhaps be Wood Elf? Now, I can adjudicate this a number of ways. Presumably, first thought is, I don't know. Maybe I rolled them up as a wandering creature encounter. Maybe I just never noted down what type of elves these were. Some GMs just might go, hey, why not? I didn't note it, so it's yours. Go. Or some folks might decide to take some kind of roll the dice. Well, I've got 8 different types of elves. Roll a d8. What I'm suggesting is, sure, this player has made it known they want to inquire about this. This is something that they have. So yeah, you can push the scale down a little bit. The whole point is that by going to the Oracle, I am saying as a GM, I didn't plan this. This isn't something that I have information on. Now, in a GM-less game, you might be using the Oracle all the time. You might think, oh my gosh, that's super powerful. And it would be if I was rolling the Oracle all the time. I'm the GM of this game. I've done at least some preparation work.
As far as you know. Cut the crap.
Or even if I haven't, I have ideas.
Idea man.
So the only time I'm giving recourse to the Oracle is during these kind of edge cases, smaller moments, or random type events for which I don't have a preconceived idea. It's not going to be happening all the time. It's not going to be happening for huge things because those kind of things I'm going to think about a moment for. And in those situations, given those kind of parameters, loose though they may be, the character can put their finger on the scale a little bit. That's fine. The other thing to keep in mind is that the reason why I'm designing Oracle the way it is because it dovetails with this kind of skill mechanic that I'm working on. And with the skill mechanic, you're looking at niche kind of skills.
There's a niche.
With very small modifiers because I'm using essentially building on top of the kind of classic X and 6. Somebody with a background, something who's at high level would have a maximum of +3 to their dice. Now, when they're rolling the Oracle, they don't get that +3, they'll roll 3 dice. So the most dice anybody could be rolling for the Oracle is 3. And then if you were to get your best roll or something was a 6, you kind of get what you're looking for. The odds of getting a 6 on even a 3d6 roll is not that great. I mean, it's not terrible. I think I did any dice, and any dice told me it was about 50%. So maybe a 50% chance. And of course, yeah, there's a higher percentage of getting some kind of positive and less chance of getting a super negative. But remember, we're talking about a high-level character. I think you would get to kind of a +3 modifier, I think, if you're level 8 or higher. So low-level characters, up until they kind of get to the heroic tier, +1, essentially, which would get 1 die. You just get 1 die. It's not going to be something that is going to be terribly efficient for the party to fish. They're going to want to go fishing for advantages. Sure, they might get it, but keep in mind, I'm listening, there's that negative side of the spectrum as well. If you keep fishing, you're going to get one of those positives, sure. Also going to get one of those super negative ones. So given all that, given that my perspective ultimately is for the kind of use cases that the Oracle's going to come up, I don't mind if the players get a little leverage, keeping in mind that they're not really able to shift the odds that much, keeping in mind that since I'm not playing a GM-less game, I am the GM, that the amount of times this Oracle is going to get used and the sorts of situations that's going to get used in are going to be fairly small edge cases, such things. I personally am fine with it. And if it allows players to use elements of things that they've picked up or little bits of backstory they picked up and that they can do it. Something that I forgot to mention is a little bit of influence of FKR, particularly Kismet, on the system, in that I've been thinking about letting go sometimes about, is it really important, right? In Kismet, you can go check out my read through of that. In Kismet, you simply have this one statistic that's going to go up and down, and essentially all you're trying to do when you're asking questions of the world or conducting actions in the world is roll against that number. And you know exactly what that number is. Sometimes it's going to be very favorable, sometimes less so. And the system actually invites you to game it. Now, it seems that Kismet's primarily a solo game, and it's really set up as kind of an experiment or allowing you to kind of conduct experiment. One thing that I've been thinking about is, do we get too caught up in the minutia of all these different modifiers and trying to get it just so? Does it really matter so much? And I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't. Now, I'm not trying to get to a Kismet level type of system, but going back to the player's ability to put their thumb on the scale a little bit, this is where I come back to, hey, you know what? If it's enabling of them in some ways, sure, they get to shift reality a little bit. Does it matter? Especially in an instance in which literally I have not come up with an answer for it. It is literally unknown, which is why we go to the Oracle in the first place, because I do not know. Does it matter so much? Is it so scary? Is it so horrible, given that there are consequences for trying, that they might get the opposite of what they're asking for, or worse? I think the answer is no. When I said player facing, somebody was confused. Well, what does it matter? Who rolls the dice? And that's a fair point. I didn't explain it very well. But really, what I mean about player facing in this sense is that the players can put forth the thing. It's not me as the GM saying, oh, you know what else? Roll a die. I could do that, but it's not really what I mean. What I'm saying is that the player, knowing their own character, can look at it and say, hey, I got this thing. Never get to use it, but here are some elves. I can use it. And it's up to them to really put it forward. Like a lot of things that when I'm looking at kind of house rules or mechanics, I'm always trying to offload stuff on the players, make the players responsible for as much stuff as I can, especially stuff that's them. So it's on the players to recognize when they see some elves in the distance to make that move. It's not me. And that's what I mean by player facing. I should have used a different term, player enabled, I don't know, player, whatever. So I called it player facing, which is probably not the best turn of phrase to use, but that's what I meant. That I'm putting it on them. Hey, you've got the stuff that you may have come up with, maybe stuff that's happened in the game, maybe stuff in your backstory, maybe whatever. You have the emblem of lost Elven Kingdom and you want to see if these folks are the remnants, go for it, but it's on you. It's not on me. The part will be on me will be to express that I kind of do anyway, and I think a lot of people do anyway, when a question is asked or a situation arises in which there is no knowledge of the world, this is something new to the world, is, geez, I'm not sure. Let's roll some dice and find out. All I'm really adding to that is something that I think already also exists. Roll a die and we'll see whether it's the way you like it or it's the other way. The thing that I'm doing is formalizing it, trying to come up with a way to turn it into sort of an informal, hey, this is just how we do it, to more of a formal system, and one that's going to kind of work hand in hand with the skill system that I'm developing. The last thing is a lot of folks are pointing out different Oracle systems. I appreciate it. I feel like I've got it covered. It's something that happens a lot. You post an idea, and people want to tell you about all these other kind of similar things that are out there. Cover the same ground and doing it already. I appreciate it. In fact, Daniel, a lot of people saying, oh, Bandits keeps video on this 3D6 system. Daniel actually told me about that a couple of times. Very much appreciate people shouting out. He sent me the original video, which he got from somebody else, that I will watch out of curiosity and just to broaden my knowledge. Not looking for a system. I got the system that I want, and I'll tweak it. I'll tweak it here and there. But I appreciate folks sharing systems, because even though I'm not in the market for one at the moment, you never know who else might look at it and say, boy, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. I'm going to do it. And then finally, Dungeon Master Masterclass pointed out something about simulationist players. Well, simulationist players probably not going to want to do that. And fair enough. I'm not worried about that. To be honest, I don't care. That is the least of my concerns. If there's some segment of players or GMs that look at this and say, pshaw,
You humbug!
that's fine, because ultimately I'm building this first for myself, and secondly for anyone who might think it might work for them. If someone's a simulationist player, then I would imagine that oracles in general aren't going to be their jam, because they're going to either have, I imagine, things planned out more, or they'll have some kind of table like you might find in the Wilderness Survival Guide of some large percentage of how filled with fish different bodies of water are in different latitudes and longitudes and habitat. And while I appreciate the pointing it out, which it's true enough, that is by far the least my concern. Don't care. And I think nobody should care about that stuff. And I think this is where a problem comes in which you're trying to please everybody with some kind of mechanic or system. I'm not. I'm focused on pleasing myself. And if some other folks find it useful, great. If everybody hates it, but my folks personally love it, that's great. I'm really only in trouble if I don't like it or the people I'm trying to play with don't like it. So, with all due respect to simulationist players or story games players or some other kind of players,
Player haters ball.
if you don't like it, don't use it. If you don't like it, leave it alone. It's not something I'm trying to force upon everybody. But point noted. Continue giving me your feedback because I really enjoy it and it gives me food for thought. All that said, game on, everybody. And I'll talk to you later.